Building a camera rig could be kind of confusing, especially if you're on a budget, and it depends on what kind of camera you have. But I wanted to show you a universal build that works for most cameras, and I wanted to show you each piece as you build out your camera rig. You obviously don't have to buy everything at once. You could start with few of the essentials and then build on that as you go. So for example, here's the most basic camera rig here with only 2 or 3 pieces on it, and here's a fully built one. So we'll go one step at a time and show you what the most essential things are to the more advanced things. Let's start with the very first item that I think every camera rig should have, and that is a base plate. The base plate makes it really easy to go on and off a tripod and to go from handheld mode to tripod mode. So I have them pretty much for every camera I have. A lot of different brands make them. So for example, I have a Sony one here, I have a Tilda one here, I have a Zacuto one on this other camera. The benefit of these universal plates is instead of putting your camera on this tripod plate and then having to unscrew this every time and then going to your shoulder mount, this basically makes it really easy. So 2 things you need. You need the universal base plate. Again, there's a couple of different ones. And I'll put link to everything I mentioned in the description below to make it a lot easier. And then you need one of these plates. These are called VCT plates. They're quick release plates. And then your regular tripod plates goes underneath it. These have been around for quite some time. But what you do is you put this on the tripod and then you'll take your camera and then you have this universal base plate that locks right into it. So let me show you. It just goes on and it clicks on when you push it forward on the tripod. And then to release it, it just has a quick release. So you could go from tripod mode to handheld mode just like that. So now I could just throw this on my shoulder. It has a pad already. Most of the universal ones do, including the Zacuto one. And you're ready to go handheld just like that without having to unscrew anything. So that's the first thing I recommend is a base plate like the one you see here, then the VCT quick release plate that will go on your camera. I usually get these together. Now, after you get your base plate, you could build on that from that point on. And if you have a different kind of camera like this one here, this is the Blackmagic 6K camera, you could get these cages. Now, cages kind of work the same as a base plate, so you have something nice here that could go on a tripod. Now, this is not built out for a handheld rig, so these other ones are going to be more appropriate for handheld rigs. I'll show you how to build those up. But for smaller cameras, these cages are definitely the first essential thing you should get to build out your rig. The second thing I recommend after you have your base plate is this top plate that has a bunch of holes here where you could screw accessories onto it. So I have one here by Wooden Camera. I have a different one from Zacuto here. And they basically let you put all these accessories on top of your camera instead of just the one hole that usually comes with a camera or the shoe mount. This lets you put a lot more accessories if you have these kind of plates on your camera. So I recommend getting that for whatever camera you may have. The third thing I'm gonna mention is this thing that is specific to the FS7, but some other cameras have it too, that lets you rotate just with a quick release here, your arm, your handle. So if your camera has one of these handles like mine has, instead of having to unscrew it manually, you're gonna wanna get one of these. I have it on both of my FS7s and it's very, very handy. Then let's talk about front handles. If you do a lot of handheld work, the FS7 by default is pretty much good to go with this shape accessory I have because it already comes with a grip and a handle the way it's designed. Some other cameras do not. So let me show you. Here I have a C300 here, I'll show you. This front handle basically goes right here on your shoulders. And again, this is one of those shape ones too. So I have this release here for the handle and it has a grip relocator. So it took the grip from the camera and put it over here and it'll take a wire to it and it's ready to go. So this would basically become the most basic type of a handheld rig. You have your universal base plate, you have some rods, and then you have this piece. Now Zacuto makes it all in one. I just pieced mine with 2 different brands here, but this basically is how you would go handheld with just a couple of different pieces. Now let me show you some more advanced pieces as we go. Those were the essentials of how I would build any camera rig in that order. But now, when we get to a little bit more of a built-out camera mode, follow focus is probably the most essential thing in that order. So I definitely had this follow focus for quite some time, and you would get one of these focus rings around your lens and you could go ahead and pull focus a lot easier if that is part of your workflow. The next thing I got is, in the case of the FS7, is a way to offset the built-in monitor. So I got the Zacuto piece that makes it a lot easier to move this around. Default one, I don't like. The standard stock one, I don't like as much as the Zacuto one. So that's the next piece I got. After that, let's talk about the matte box. Now, I use the matte box for 2 different things, for filters and to cut light from hitting the lens with this eyebrow here. So this piece could basically go right on top of your lens here, and when you're lighting from the opposite side of the camera, it's not gonna create lens flare. That's probably the most important reason why I use a matte box as much as I can in those situations. But for ND filters and other filters, it's handy as well, so you could drop those in. Cameras like the Red, for example, don't have built-in ND filters. The Sony FS7 has that built in, so I wouldn't use this for ND filters in that case. But if you have cameras like the Red camera, you definitely need a matte box. But in this setup, I usually recommend this further down the line. Having an external monitor could come in really handy. This is my tripod mode here. So I got this Noga arm holding this external Odyssey. And this is also a recorder. So it's a monitor and a recorder. When I go to handheld mode, I usually do take this off. Everything else stays and I work off this. But if you're on tripod mode, this is really great. It also has two outputs here, so you could send the signal to a couple of different places. So does the camera. So if you have a place that you want someone else to look at it, maybe a director to look at your feed, this is really great to be able to send a lot of different feeds out of this camera to different places. And finally, the last thing I want to show you with this setup is the Teradek. Now, this lets me send the signal, whatever I'm recording, wirelessly somewhere else. So for example, on bigger shoots, when there is a video village, a monitor where there's a director and a script supervisor watching what you're doing, it's so handy to send that signal wirelessly, especially when you're moving fast. You could do it with a cable, but that really slows down production. So this is probably one of the later things you would buy, but to have the ability to send high resolution, uncompressed footage on an external monitor using this Teradek is really, really handy. Again, one of the benefits of having this is that you don't have any cables attached to you. If the sound department too could put something wireless, then you're fully free of wires. One of my favorite ways to work. And I'll make more videos going over each camera and how I rig it out. This was just an overview of all the different pieces you need to build out any camera rig. So I'll put a link in the description to all the things that I mentioned, so you could kind of check them out and see what works with your workflow. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe. I post these type of videos multiple times a week on this channel, and I hope to see you next time.